Hi, I'm Stephanie, and this is the Headlines and Tidbits podcast. Here, we dust off forgotten, bizarre, and unbelievable stories pulled straight from old newspapers. In each full episode, I take a single headline that caught my attention, something strange, unsettling, or just too compelling to ignore, and walk you through the real story behind it, the people involved, what happened, and how it unfolded. So, let's get into today's headline. And this headline reads, "Young Girl Killed at the Grave of Her Father." And this headline comes from the Berkeley Gazette and is dated August 9th, 1909. I have to admit, this is one of the most mysterious and haunting headlines I've ever read. So let's dive into the background of this young girl that was found at the grave of her father, and her name is Anna Schumacher. Anna was born on February 3rd, 1892 in Rochester, New York. Her parents were Johannes Joseph Schumacher and Maria, she went by Mary, Schumacher. Anna was one of 12 children. Her parents were both born in Germany. They also were married in Germany in 1874. The couple came to America in 1875 and settled in New York. Sadly, Anna's father died in 1897, and this left a huge burden on Anna's mother. Remember, they had 12 children. And because of this, Anna quit school and was working as a seamstress at a factory to help support the family. Now let's get into the night when Anna was murdered. It was the height of the summer in Rochester, August 7th, 1909. A warm Sunday, the kind where everything seems still and quiet. And that afternoon, Anna Schumacher left her home on Caddy Street wearing a red skirt, a white shirt, a straw hat with green trimmings, and a coral necklace. She was carrying flowers for her father's grave in Holy Sepulchre Cemetery. She boarded a streetcar downtown, transferred to a different car, and was last seen stepping off at the cemetery gate. When she didn't return that night, her mother Mary and siblings started to worry. So her mother and her sister went to the police station and reported her missing. The police didn't really take this report seriously at first. Anna's sister would later recall that the police officer pretty much blew them off and told them, quote, "There are a lot of girls out as late as this." It was 10:40 p.m., and she had been gone for a little less than 10 hours. The police officer then asked Mary how old Anna was, and Mary replied that she was almost 16 years old. The police officer then asked, "Is she accustomed to being alone at this time of night?" And this question did not sit well with Mary and Anna's sister. They just left the police station, went home, got lanterns, some friends and family, and started searching for Anna themselves. They first went to the graveyard and found evidence that Anna was there. They found flowers next to Anna's father and her younger sister's grave. Also, they could tell that Anna had trimmed the grass around the gravestones. But that night, they did not locate Anna. But the next day, which was Sunday, the family gathered more friends and family to help them search for Anna. The group had no luck searching the graveyard, so they decided to spread out and go to the homes that were close to the graveyard to see if anyone could offer some helpful information. One man answered his door and suggested that they get a hold of Constable Stalin Baker, because if anyone could find Anna, he said it would be him. The constable wondered if Anna had consistently gone to the cemetery under the guise of visiting her family, but was maybe actually going there to meet a boy instead. Anna's brother John stated that he knew of at least 3 times she'd gone to the cemetery, but doubted that she was going there to meet a boy. And he also followed this up by saying that Anna was not used to going places alone. Generally, she was accompanied by one of her sisters. On Monday, the constable and Otto Friedman, who was an associate of the constables, and Anna's brother went back to the cemetery to search for Anna. They talked to the groundskeeper, who said he did remember seeing Anna decorating the graves, and then he said he thought she had wandered off towards the river to pick flowers. The men went towards the river, and the constable noticed drag marks. So they followed these marks and then noticed a patch of loose earth. The men started digging at the ground and soon found a ribbon and women's clothing. They stopped digging and went to fetch the sheriff. The sheriff immediately came to the scene, and they uncovered the body of Anna Schumacher. Her body was face down, and her legs were folded up so that she could fit in the small grave. She had a few visible injuries: a cut above her left eye, a bruise on her left cheek, bruises all over her chest, and apparently one of her breasts were, quote, black and discolored. An eyewitness told the papers that it was obvious that Anna was sexually assaulted. And newspapers across the country began reporting on the murder. The sheriff believed that the grave had been dug with a shovel, which made them think that maybe the murderer was associated with the cemetery. And the coroner concluded that Anna was killed by manual strangulation. The coroner also stated that both of Anna's lungs had collapsed and there was possible human flesh under her fingernails. So police began immediately interviewing the cemetery employees. Almost all the employees said that when the police were clearing the crime scene, there was a man watching the whole thing from a distance. They said he was wearing a straw hat and a blue shirt. They said when the man noticed them, he took off. The cemetery workers apparently went after the man, who then took off in a full run, and the workers lost track of him. Now, the police were also searching the cemetery grounds and found a bloody shovel in the cemetery's boiler room. The shovel was stolen from a nearby cow barn of St. Bernard's Seminary, which was close to the cemetery. Eventually, the police and district attorney reached out to the public asking for help. The police continued to interview transients, workers, strangers, and even people who came forward to, quote, help. Some men falsely confessed, others were arrested simply for being nearby, but every lead collapsed. On Wednesday, August 11th, Anna's funeral was held at St. Peter's Church. It was a closed casket funeral, and many of Anna's previous classmates attended. In fact, so many people attended the funeral that it was standing room only. After the funeral, the casket was sent to the cemetery, the same cemetery she was murdered in. But the Schumacher family plot was there. The family had trouble locating Anna's sister, Cecilia, to inform her of the death of her sister, but strangely, the sister showed up at the funeral. Sadly, she had learned of her sister's death by reading about it in one of the papers. After the funeral, a lot of papers were, of course, still reporting on this, and some reporters talked about how Anna's death could be used as a lesson for young girls. In an article titled "A Lesson in Warning," the author reflects on how this tragic crime in Rochester involving this 17-year-old girl should be used as a broader warning to parents. The writer argues that the tragedy might have been avoided had the young woman not been alone, emphasizing the dangers faced by unattended girls in isolated places. The writer goes on to say cemeteries, the deserted outskirts of cities, and even quiet country roads are described as potential sites of danger, not only at night, but even in broad daylight. And this article, it places responsibility squarely on the parents, criticizing what it calls parental negligence for allowing young girls to travel or run errands alone. It warns that danger can appear suddenly, even on familiar roads or during ordinary activities, and suggests that both city and rural parents often underestimate these risks. The piece concludes by insisting that, in light of the Rochester tragedy, parents must be more vigilant and protective to prevent similar outcomes. This obviously did not sit well with Anna's mother, and she came back with a statement claiming that she knew where Anna was and that she felt she was safe. She had made this trip many times. Now, the same day of the funeral, a couple, Mr. and Mrs. Hartman, came forward and said they saw Anna at the cemetery the day she disappeared. They said they saw her kneeling and praying at her father's grave. But they also said they saw a man standing behind her wearing a black suit and a black derby hat. They said after Anna was done praying, she stood up and walked off into the woods with the man. The Hartmans never saw Anna or the man again. The police made a public statement claiming that they believe the killer was acquainted in some way to Anna. They also made the bold claim that they will catch the killer soon. The day after the funeral, farmers, citizens, police, and police search dogs, which were Dobermans, went searching the surrounding fields and marshlands looking for the killer. The paper described it in great detail, saying men and dogs were marching through the fields with shotguns. They felt that the murderer was hiding in the woods or fields waiting for the right time to escape, or that he was sticking close to the scene of the crime for some weird reason. In fact, people who lived in the area said they would see a man walking around or poking his head out of the woods. On the 13th of August, the police made their first arrest. They arrested Ed Ewald, who was a farmhand from a nearby town, Greece. Ed used to work at the cemetery where Anna was killed, but was eventually fired when he was accused of verbally harassing women who were at the cemetery. He was described as being a small but strong man who had a dark complexion and a Roman nose. So I wonder if he was Italian. I don't know. He was obviously a known face around this area, which was why when witnesses came forward saying they saw Ed at the cemetery the day Anna was killed, police believed these witnesses. When he was picked up by the police, he reportedly had scratches on his face. One article said that the police thought the scratches were from a razor. However, he was released when his alibi checked out. He said he took the train to go see his brother who lived near the cemetery. He said when he got off the train, he stopped to pick and eat some blackberries. He said this was how he got the scratches on his hand and face. Apparently, people were able to corroborate his whereabouts that entire day, and he was never at the cemetery. On August 14th, Anna's sister Cecilia made a statement to the papers claiming how upset she was with the local police department. She said she believed that the police would have caught the murderer if they had listened to her mother when she first reported Anna missing. She also stated that Anna's petticoat, which she was wearing the day she was murdered, had never been recovered. She told reporters that she believed the murderer still had the petticoat. Now, the strangest thing, she said during her statement, was the fact that her mother received an anonymous letter the day of the funeral. All Cecilia would reveal about the letter was that it was some sort of a warning to the family. The letter was signed "A Friend." Now, I don't know if this was a warning to stop searching or a warning that the family was in danger. It's hard to say. Police did end up arresting another man, Joseph Dumas, on August 14th. He was arrested in the nearby town of Cortland under suspicion that he knew something about Anna's murder, and police noted that his hands were badly scratched. Joseph had a box with him when he was arrested, and it had some interesting contents, including a bloody handkerchief, a woman's small hand mirror, and a woman's nail file. This arrest ultimately went nowhere. On August 18th, the local sheriff increased the award to $2,500, which is about $90,000 today, for any information that would have led to the arrest of the murderer. By January of 1910, the long unsolved murder of Anna Schumacher appeared to be nearing resolution. Authorities announced that James Hall, a naval prisoner being held at the Portsmouth Navy Yard in New Hampshire for fraudulent enlistment, had confessed to killing Anna. Hall allegedly admitted that he encountered Anna in the cemetery as she placed flowers on her father's grave. He then followed her into a secluded area, which was where her baby sister was buried, and attacked her. According to his confession, she fought fiercely before he struck her and then later buried her body in a shallow grave. And he said he then fled the area by freight train. After this, he enlisted in the Navy under false pretenses, hoping to escape the consequences of the crime. Hall's confession reportedly came after weeks of visible mental distress while imprisoned. Fellow sailors said that they noticed his agitation, that he wasn't sleeping, and had erratic behavior. And this was eventually what caused his superiors to question him. The district attorney in Rochester moved quickly to secure Hall's return to New York. And once Hall got back to Rochester and was being interviewed by the police there, he started to claim that the killing was actually accidental. He intended only to stun Anna, and he didn't mean to kill her. And very soon after this, he did recant his entire statement and insisted that he has actually never been to Rochester before and did not know Anna. But the police officers were still not sure. So they took him to the crime scene, and he casually remarked that he had never seen this place before. So authorities were actually starting to grow suspicious that Hall's confession may have been a calculated attempt to escape his naval imprisonment for fraudulent enlistment rather than a genuine admission of guilt. As the days passed, newspapers openly questioned whether Hall was a cunning faker, and officials noted contradictions in his story. However, most damaging of all, a farmer came forward and established an alibi, placing Hall elsewhere on the day of Anna Schumacher's murder. So, with no physical evidence tying him to the crime, the murder case against Hall collapsed. And with that, Hall was sent back to New Hampshire to serve his prison sentence with the Navy. Now, the police, they continued to investigate and interrogate suspects, but the case, it did turn cold. However, in September of 1913, 4 years after the murder of Anna, the case was suddenly thrust back into the headlines when a young man named Jacob Wolfson was arrested in Philadelphia on a charge of larceny. While in custody, Jacob stunned police by claiming that he was the man who had murdered Anna in the cemetery in 1909. He said the crime had weighed on his conscience for years and that he could no longer keep the secret. Jacob gave a detailed and graphic confession. He claimed he had met Anna in the cemetery while she was visiting her father's grave. He said he flirted with her and then attacked her when she rejected his advances. According to his account, he strangled her, dragged her body to a wooded area near the riverbank, dug a shallow grave, and buried her. He said he had worked on a nearby farm at the time and then fled Rochester afterward. Shortly after confessing, Jacob attempted to hang himself in his Philadelphia jail cell using strips torn from his shirt. Guards intervened in time, and newspapers seized on the dramatic episode, portraying him as a remorse-stricken killer driven nearly mad by guilt. Jacob told officials he had confessed because he wanted to die, but lacked the courage to commit suicide. And after this, he recanted his confession. He hysterically declared that he had lied and had not killed Anna, and he claimed he fabricated the entire story because his life was miserable. So investigators, they still looked into his story and quickly identified serious problems with his story. His description of Anna's clothing did not match what she was known to have worn that day. His account of her movements conflicted with witness testimony, and police also discovered inconsistencies in his employment timeline and questioned whether he was even in Rochester at the time of the murder. Now, if you remember, some witnesses recalled seeing Anna speaking with a man dressed in dark clothing in the cemetery on the day she disappeared, and police wondered if Jacob fit those descriptions. However, no witnesses could identify his face, and none of the accounts firmly placed him with Anna at the moment of the crime. Anna's family and close acquaintances strongly disputed Jacob's claims that she had been flirtatious or familiar with him, describing her instead as a modest, reserved, and cautious girl. Anna's mother publicly stated that Jacob had deliberately lied about her daughter. So by the end of September 1913, authorities concluded that Jacob was not the killer. Prosecutors openly stated they did not believe him guilty of Anna Schumacher's murder and declined to pursue extradition of murder charges. The consensus was that Jacob had fabricated his confession, first to escape his legal troubles, and later to seek death as a form of personal release. And once again, the case collapsed under scrutiny. Anna Schumacher's murder remained officially unsolved, leaving behind yet another false confession, another burst of public attention, and no closer to the answer of who truly killed her. And this is where the story truly settles into something heavier. Despite arrests, false confessions, crazy headlines, and years of speculation, no one was ever held accountable for Anna Schumacher's murder. The men who claimed responsibility were proven unreliable. And what remains is a young woman who left her home on a warm August afternoon to do something tender and ordinary, bring flowers to her father and sister's grave. In the years that followed, Anna's name was repeatedly pulled into the public eye, not because answers had been found, but because the mystery itself refused to rest. Her story became a vessel for fear, moral warnings, false hope, and even desperation. More than a century later, the question still lingers, not just who killed Anna Schumacher, but how a crime so violent, committed in the middle of the day, could leave behind so many witnesses and no truth. Thank you so much for listening to Headlines and Tidbits. If you enjoyed this episode, consider following or subscribing so you don't miss future stories pulled from the pages of the past. Until next time.